So I'm participating in capitalism, right? I'm at the store. I'm at like a Fred Meyer's, and I notice that Pokemon is now doing this thing. They have like a vending machine for Pokemon cards.
Ah.
It's kind of cool, I guess. If you're gonna go to a hobby store and get Pokemon cards and stuff like that, usually people are nicer when they do stuff like that.
Yeah. Not with a machine though.
Yeah. Well, at least the machine is taking the spot of like random retail employees getting physically assaulted for cardboard. So, I think, okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Is it gonna do anything cool when I order whatever? So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna buy a pack of Pokemon cards. Spoiler warning, it doesn't do anything cool. It just drops them into a thing like every other vending machine ever.
Yes.
But what really got me that day that I did that was I was like, why is it over here? What's the deal with this? As I'm thinking this, and as I'm buying Pokemon cards, an old man walks up to the lottery ticket machine next to the Pokemon machine. And I'm just from the side of my eye, I see him with something in his hand, and he's just rubbing and he says to himself, "Oh please," as he orders a ticket. And then I looked at myself and I said, this is a nightmare. This is a Black Mirror episode, is it not?
Is it any different than like the pachinko machines in Japan, or?
It's I think that's the reason why it's right next to the lotto machine. Get the kiddies started early.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Pokemon Company. Thank you very much. Very cool.
Go to all your arcades, kids. Support those. Welcome to the list.
Look at that subtle off-white coloring. The tasteful thickness of it. Oh my god. It even has a watermark.
You've never seen it.
I've never seen it.
Oh my.
All right, Tony. Episode 6, month 6. Happy Pride, folks.
Yes. And what better way to celebrate Pride? What better way than with Berga?
We are about halfway done with this choice.
Oh yeah, about halfway through. We still got some of the good stuff down towards the bottom. Today we got lettuce.
Yes.
I don't have a funny little thing for lettuce. It's just lettuce.
That's
Sure.
fine.
Here, have your lettuce.
I am a lettuce fanatic. Insane in the membrane, if you will. Americans, most of the time, I work at some sort of food industry, service job and everything, right? Most of the time I hear the phrase, no vegetables, because that is the country we live in America.
Oh yeah.
But no. So what will this lettuce membrane be? Let's find out, Tony.
All right, just bust into it.
Bust into this Buffy.
Don't.
A film. Why?
Relax.
Okay.
Here she is.
Month 2 of Metropolis, people.
Metropolis, 2001. Produced by Studio Madhouse, directed by Rintaro. More importantly, I might have led you guys astray last time I talked about this movie. It is based upon a manga by Osamu Tezuka. It's not directed by the guy. He wrote it back in like the 1940s. So very different from, I might have told you that.
Yeah.
I really tried to find a link directly from this movie to old Metropolis, but it was very difficult. In doing that, I learned a whole lot more about somebody who's really interesting.
Yes.
Osamu Tezuka is a really cool dude. He was a movie-crazed kid and saw basically everything that you could see in Japan when he was like a kid and into his teenage years. So if at any point Metropolis ever showed in Japan, he saw it.
No, I guarantee you we're going to see some kind of influence, whether intentional or unintentional.
Oh, yeah. Metropolis is the granddaddy of all sci-fi, and it seeped into everything. But
Yeah.
I really wanted to find that little fun line, Pepe Sylvia, my way towards that.
Yes, we got to have that Pepe in there.
Don't.
No, I'm making an It's Always Sunny reference. Would you be Charlie in this instance?
So basically, this guy is crazy. He worked 100% from day zero, ever since he was like a teenager. He's always been working on art, on story, on whatever. He worked in medical school, and he also was drafted into a factory to build supplies for the war during World War II.
Yes.
He started as a teenager in, I think, 1944, like literally towards the very end, where they were just pumping out whatever to make as much damage as possible towards the very end. So he lived through the war as a kid, saw every side, saw how horrible everybody was on every front, and said to himself, you know what? I'm gonna make the world better one way or another. He was at the forefront of like the manga industry way back in the day. He was the man behind Shin Takaharajima, which is like New Treasure Planet, which is like one of the first ever big names in manga, and it kind of like catapulted the whole thing off into the stratosphere. He was known for, he also wrote Astro Boy. He did the art for Astro Boy back when it was something called Ambassador Atom.
Okay.
Which was based on his one interaction with an American GI where he just got punched in the face for no reason. Pretty cool. Awesome guy. This all influenced a lot of his work, from everything that he did early on manga. He was just there at the forefront. He's like one of the guys that started this whole huge craze, right? Yeah. And that includes a trilogy of manga that he worked on, which included the inspiration for this movie, Metropolis.
Okay. I know absolutely nothing, as usual. It's not anything that I am very, very familiar with, so I'm curious to see how at all this plays out. So go ahead and follow us all over to my house. Don't do that.
Do not. You don't know where we live. Hopefully. Hopefully.
My address is...
The time, the near future, the place, the most advanced civilization on the planet. The occasion, a celebration of progress and technology. Prepare yourself for Metropolis, the most spectacular anime in motion picture history. Directed by Rintaro, the celebrated director of Galaxy Express 999. Written by Katsuhiro Otomo, creator of the breakthrough feature Akira, and based on the classic manga by the godfather of Japanese animation, Osamu Tezuka. TriStar Pictures proudly presents a futuristic vision where robots have evolved, but mankind has a long way to go. Welcome to Metropolis.
All right. So, Colin, what did you think of Metropolis 2001?
So before I actually give my thoughts on the movie, let's address the intro. I did not communicate something to Tony earlier a couple months ago.
It got communicated, but I kind of like got it all screwed up.
Yeah.
We were thinking, or I was thinking, that we were gonna watch this movie kind of as together, as like a first time sort of experience to see how much these two movies correlated.
Yes.
So as a consequence of that, I've not seen the whole movie. I've seen the first bit of it and stopped.
I was trying to say, we'll watch the first one, which I had, sorry, not the first one, the original, which I had already seen. And I was telling Tony, well, wait till we watch the original and then watch this for you. So there was some miscommunication.
So this is our first time seeing this movie, both of us.
Which is fine. And also we forgot to address the sort of attributed director. It's a dude named Rintaro. When I was looking into his animation history, he worked on Akira, from what I understand, but also he worked on seemingly a lot of like IP-based, like TV animation.
Yeah, he's one of the founders of studio Madhouse, so anything connected to them, pretty much he had a hand in.
Yeah, no. But for starters, one of the things I guess I wanted to change it up. To give my initial thoughts, kind of get that out of the way, I'm going to read my Letterboxd review.
I see.
Because I think it summarizes my thoughts perfectly. I finished it, wasn't exactly sure how I was feeling. I had some problems, but I checked Letterboxd, and I think I found some people who subsequently had some similar thoughts, and I was kind of able to piece together.
I walked in on Colin reading and writing this review.
Yeah.
Just sat over his phone in a
Yes.
dark room,
Yes.
blackout curtains and everything.
Yes.
He was cooking, but
boy.
now I'll find what I was cooking.
Okay. This is extremely frustrating because it's beautifully animated and the music, besides one out-of-place tone-deaf needle drop, is great. But when it's not pulling directly from the 1927 film I assume the manga is very clearly inspired by, then I find it to be really unfocused and thematically confused on the ideas that it's trying to push forward. While the rubber hose style lends itself well to the goofy antics and action set pieces, the action set pieces seemingly don't have the kinetic pacing to make it feel snappy and alive. When these designs start speaking technobabble, I found my eyes glazing over and then proceeding to roll because of the constant writing trope in Japanese animation of characters verbally explaining the visually conveyed themes. So, my thoughts. When you put that aside and you kind of like take it out of the condensing, this movie doesn't really have a main character.
It has a bunch of okay side characters
Yeah.
and then two nothing characters
Yeah.
that I'm assuming were supposed to be the main characters.
Yeah, and
which is not a good setup, bro.
yeah, I'm not. Okay, for one, I want to bring up, I did like a little bit of research a couple months prior when you said you wanted to put this somewhere on the list. I just didn't know where, on whether or not this movie had any direct inspiration from Metropolis, and I went in smelling just a little bit of bullshit. Because I saw a bunch of people who are obviously very big anime fans trying to push forth the idea that this has nothing to do, it's just in name only inspiration, right? Then we got into the first shot.
The first, the man literally standing upon a ziggurat,
Yeah, he's standing on the thematic Tower of Babel.
which they later just call the Tower of Babel.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where we had just watched this last month, so maybe if it wasn't as fresh in our minds. I don't know. It's like, I don't want to say like the people are just blind or directly lying who are fans of this movie and or this book. I don't know how directly this pulls from the manga or whether or not it's changed a bunch of stuff, but I almost feel kind of like people are so in love with what they maybe saw first that they're not wanting to admit that. Because the problem for me is not the stuff it pulls. In fact, I think the stuff that works in this movie is what it pulls from Metropolis, the live-action German film, Fritz Lang's Metropolis.
I think what makes a lot of people really, really love this film is kind of the same thing that makes people love like characters that don't have a lot of personality, is that they can just inject into the film what they feel and what they think. They can put themselves in the place of the characters and say like, this is what it means.
So why people pretend to like Bethesda games?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hot take. Fuck Skyrim.
It's a lukewarm take.
Okay.
It used to be hot. It's very lukewarm.
Fuck Skyrim, but also fuck Oblivion, and
So,
yeah.
start off. Let's talk a little bit about what's really great about the film. Which you cannot deny is great is the animation.
Yeah, no, this
It's
is
wonderful.
This is a reversal of Belle, where Belle, I'm sure I would have if that video had been seen by people, which it's not, and that's fine. I'm not blaming you.
Go watch Belle. Do it.
I did not like the animation on that movie at all. I thought its art direction was very all over the place. As I brought up color palette, it just didn't have one. It was all over the place. Then this, it's like there's lots of CG. I don't have a problem with that though, because it's all oriented and it has a nice color palette. It's how you'd imagine the original Fritz Lang's Metropolis looking if it wasn't color.
Everything, it has an art style that it sticks to.
Yeah.
It has color palettes for scenes that they stick to. When they use CGI, most of the time they are like piling on additional effects and drawing and animation on top of it to hide that it's like just CGI.
Yeah.
Like all the, like, oh God, once again, just in the intro to the movie, to compare it to Belle, Belle's intro just looks a lot like just a whole lot of stuff that means a whole lot of nothing that they just made to look really cool. Whereas they were like, in this movie, they decided we're going to make giant towers and we're going to make them look as great as we can. They started with the base CGI that did like the bulk of the work, and then they fill it all out with details.
It's monolithic, and if you're getting towards like the biblical stuff that they're referencing, the large Jewish temple, not Jewish, just a large religious temple that they approached before Jesus in the Bible walked in and started tearing it up, saying, "Why have you turned my sanctuary of worship into a place like a market, basically?" From the outside in the Bible, it's described as sort of this large structure that's literally made out of gold, so when the sun hits it, it's like so monolithic and bright and angelic that you're almost blinded by it, which then ties into like King Arthur mythology and how the the castle of King Arthur is made out of all these precious metals. It's pulling from all these things that I really, really fucking enjoy, and on top of that, taking what works about Metropolis, which is sort of the Art Deco of the 1920s New York sort of standpoint, and then applying that and having this sort of like retro-futurist aesthetic, and then underground, instead of sticking with like a bare bones retro-futurist aesthetic, it just turns into dystopian fucking nightmare shit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And that's fucking awesome, and it rocks.
Yeah, so music, great, jazz, upbeat, really, really great music, but it all falls apart with the needle drop.
Yeah, the needle drop is a very... I'm conflicted about it because, once again, it's something that like you write that down in a screenplay, like you specifically write that in, and it's supposed to have this big emotional affecting moment, but the problem is if you don't connect with either of these two characters and buy what the movie is trying to do, which is convey this sense of not even just literal romance of like lovey mushy gushy shit, but like the romance of the adventure that it's trying to fucking convey.
The connection between two characters. And if you don't build that in the film when it hits the needle drop...
It's Suicide Squad's soundtrack, which is a bunch of fluff and licensed shit. I don't want to call it shit, but there's... Okay, you haven't seen Suicide Squad. That's a threat that I'm making to Tony, by the way. The 2016 Suicide Squad, because we're watching bad movies on here too. Occasionally, and that is a prime example that I always give to people of like, you want to know what like bad editing is in a movie? That. And that is like, imagine that scene that you're talking about, but spread across a whole movie trying to copy what James Gunn does so well. But just spreading it across that. Thankfully, it's not there as much, and for the most part, as you said, the score is very jazzy, and it almost feels like improv-ish to sync up to whatever the movements of the characters are, which also brings me over to like another problem I have that I brought up in that review. It's like the chases are all super well animated, but I feel like there's a certain kind of sluggishness to them.
Yeah, a lot of the movement in this movie, they draw many frames, extra frames to like make it feel more natural, but it's just dragged out.
I don't think that's the problem though. So we watched The Graduate. In The Graduate, there is a shot that perfectly demonstrates, I guess, my problem with what I think it is, which is like a framing issue. You know that shot in The Graduate where, you know, you've watched the Looney Tunes Wile E. Coyote-esque chase of Dustin Hoffman trying to get to the church. You know, it's this 15-minute long, insane sequence. The Graduate's one of my favorite fucking movies ever, of Dustin Hoffman running towards the camera. But because it's like so far, you can see like the heat radiation lines like going off the ground, and him like running as fast as he can towards the camera still feels like it's at a snail's pace. You are watching a lot of these characters in this movie from such like a distance far away from them, when like say in a car chase in like a movie that knows what they're doing as far as like orchestrating where the camera is, you want to have the camera whizzing by you. Instead of that, it creates an illusion of speed and also a lot more quick cutting.
And urgency,
urgency to it. It doesn't feel like that. And also, when they're okay, in Akira, there's a bunch of kids and everything. Putting kids in danger in animated movies is perfectly okay because you don't have to worry about actors getting their faces fucking smashed in. Which is why Akira, you're watching a bunch of 14-year-olds on motorcycles or speed bikes, and they're fucking like
they're so cool.
Yeah.
And they're gonna die, and you think, oh my god.
Yeah.
But then
But
these.
then a little pedal bike just fucking going like that, which you could still make look faster, i.e.
you just gotta make it. You have to have fun if you're gonna do that.
Yeah, you
Right.
got to go a little more over the top with it. And it's this almost weird contradictory style where I really love that they're pulling from this guy who clearly created Astro Boy. And you have these very, very early, silly symphony-looking Disney cartoon designs.
Yes.
I love the art of it, but when they start talking in this technobabble and they just start going off about plot, that at the end of the day really doesn't matter to what's going on.
Yeah.
Because like the themes get so drowned out by it.
What themes?
There are themes. They're just not explored because the themes that they're exploring are the same things that Metropolis is exploring. It's just not gone into as much like in depth. And I don't know, because like I brought this up to you in sort of like trying to be Metropolis, but having a reversal and having the robots rise up by the end. That works until you start to think about the stuff that I don't know, once again, if they're taking from 1984. I'm not sure when that book was written. I need to look into that. Or like 1984 pulled from this, where you have all these workers who are rising up against the machines and everything. And it seems like the movie's trying to get you to root for them for a bit, but then they kill the robots. And I almost like for a bit was like, oh, are we going for sort of like a bit of a morally ambiguous thing going on here? But I don't feel like the movie is clear enough either way.
Yeah. It's really, I think, here's the main problem, right?
Yeah.
You've said this before, right? Some people will say, I like the first act and I like the third act, but the second act was not so good. But I still love the movie. I still loved half of it.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't know, the second half of the movie, the second act of the movie, is where the bulk of the movie is.
Yeah.
It's where most things happen.
Yeah.
It's like the mids in music. If you scoop them, you're scooping, like, everything. The guitars, the vocals, the whatever. And the middle of the movie is where it really becomes side characters all just doing stuff.
Yeah, doing stuff and not building relationships ever.
I think from the moment that Tima and Kenichi end up in the sewers, the movie should have been just about them too.
Yeah.
Like the other side characters can come in and say their thing and leave, and there's bits and pieces that you take and put into the movie, but the second act should have been a bulk about just those two and building the relationship between our heart and our mediator.
Yeah, which once again, it's going back to the original Metropolis, which once again, I'm happy that like in hindsight you were able to watch that first and sort of get the reaction with this, because the thing about the original Metropolis and what it does so well is it's a movie from the 20s, so you would expect it to feel really dated, but emotions don't date.
Yeah.
It's a very humanist movie that even when we talked about, like, in that actual review, that the themes get, like, a little muddled and confused, but that's okay because you still buy all these people caring about each other. When you're watching the underground get flooded in that original film and you're watching our two leads having to save all these children, you don't know these kids, but they're innocents in, like, a whole situation.
And that builds into the whole theme about the heart and the mediator and like building this connection between them. That's the only way that we'll survive, is if we just trust fucking our emotions and we like fucking find our way out of this.
And I heard you while we were watching the animated version, you kept waiting for that moment where the heart meets the mediator, and we kind of have this like moment where the kid becomes this connector for the robots and humanity.
And it kind of just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
The ending of this movie is much more cynical, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, in both films, everything is destroyed.
Yeah.
And everyone kind of has to start all over again. But I think in this animated one, it really is like trying to tell you it's all the human's fault. There's no, like, it's supposed to be that there's no ambiguity to it. When you watch, what's his name? Duke Red. When you watch Duke Red, like, lose everything and everything come back to bite him in the ass, you're supposed to, I think, feel like, yeah, fuck him. Like, he deserved that, but it didn't.
The thing that is both like a problem with the original and also something that I can simultaneously can find to be like a positive is the fact that by the end of that movie, you're watching this like capitalist overlord essentially come to the realization like, oh, this is my fault.
Yes.
I did all this shit. So when like as thematically fucked up for like the Marxist shit as it is for the end of the original Metropolis when the mediator and the heart makes them shake hands. You're sort of coming to an agreement by the end of that. Versus this where like you feel like no problems are really going to get solved.
Yeah.
And
History
stuff's just going to dive back into it.
History repeats itself. This is just something that humans do, and it will always end this way. And it just wait for it to happen again.
Yeah. And once again, if you were to make this more about a personal thing and make it about the people involved, instead of just the larger issues at hand, that would be one thing. But because I don't care enough about it, and it kind of ends with this hopeful, well, he's going to go find her, and he's going to rebuild her. For what, though?
What it all really comes down to is that I think they really did have a strong first act, and they had a strong third act.
Yeah.
And they really needed to say, okay, why do we end up here from where we're coming from? And what's the theme? What are we trying to push? And just pick, like, one. The side characters can bring in cool ideas here and there, but you want to focus on the connection between Tima and Kenichi.
Yeah.
Because they're supposed to be the main characters, I guess.
Yeah.
You really want to build, like, a relationship and a connection that expands beyond the world at large and that makes this whole fucking journey worthwhile.
Yeah. Okay. So I remember I showed you that video by Michael Arndt on it's the screenwriter for Toy Story 3 and Little Miss Sunshine.
Yes.
And one of the things he brought up is you want an end point so bad, but if you're starting just from the beginning, and even if you have like a good starting point, and you're really struggling with your middle point and not sure where to go there, you know, and they had a brain trust to go back on these people in Pixar talking about with Toy Story 3 to go back and trying to figure like out where it is. Even if you're structurally just talking about the third act of your first act.
No.
Like where you reach from there. He's like, the place you need to start to go is to then find what you want your ending to be. Just say, this is what it's going to be. And then you just need to work backwards. Build everything around working towards that.
What is the worst possible thing that can happen? And why are we trying to get away from that?
Yeah.
And, you know, he had the whole setup. Maybe maybe there's like a graphic somewhere we can throw up.
I will link that video in the description because it's very, very fucking good. But no, with that and this kind of idea that you're talking about, and I brought up earlier, with the second act, what I feel like really needed to happen is even if this is a part of the manga, even if you're getting to this point on screen where you're realizing like you don't have this personal connection with them, examine where you are at the end of it if you don't want to change the ending, and then work to make that second act more character focused. Like, have it be about these two and, like, build up this relationship. Have, like, a cute little romance between these two. Like, and even if it's supposed to be, like, she's a blank slate and he's teaching her about that. We had, like, one scene, though, where he's trying to teach her about being human, and then she's kind of, like, shoved out of the story for about 30 or 40 minutes. And that's another thing where it's, like, both of, like, these two characters alternate between either being kidnapped or missing from the story for a bit.
There's a joke about the uncle, the detective, whatever his name is.
Yeah.
He keeps losing this kid.
Yeah.
And he's just like, whatever. He stops at like 3 different joints to eat food and not pay for it. And not pay for it.
Which, once again, if the movie was like more comedically oriented, I think that would work better. But it's trying to be so self-serious a lot of the time, where these Mega Man characters just don't fucking work. That's not. They look very nice. I like the character design. Don't fucking kill me.
It looks great. It's just the story kind of sucks.
It's almost there. That's
almost
the thing
there.
that's bugging me. I feel like more so than Belle, it's almost there. It's just, I don't know.
Well, I guess that's just about it.
Yeah.
Where the line is drawn, I guess, between this and Metropolis is just people trying to make something of this fucked up world that we're in and trying to find a way to keep the balance and to fucking find connections. It's just that this Metropolis never found its connection. It never did, I don't think. And I think that's the main problem with the movie.
At the end of the day, all we needed was a mediator between the heart and the brain. And I think we can say that about life too. Right, Tony?
Oh yeah. I could use a fucking mediator right now, bro.
I love you. That was it for this episode of the list. Peeps. Hope you liked it. sorry for the gap between this one and the last one. We were gonna go film this last week, but then I insisted we watch Spider-Verse, great movie, and Transformers. Don't. That was dog shit. So we'll try and make these more consistent. Can't guarantee that for September schedule because we're gonna be out of town at the beginning of September. So
Just stay tuned. Once a month.
stay tuned. Yeah. Next month though, gonna be having something a little different. Hope you guys enjoy it. Not gonna say anything really about it, but yeah. Stay tuned. Thank you all so much for watching. Hope you all enjoyed Metropolis, possibly more than we did. If you found anything that you disagree with us on in the comments, let us know. Get that engagement up. Clap.
Chef! That was a loud chef.
That was a loud chef, but we cut on chef.
So no one's going to experience it.
No one's going to experience it. Once again, you can take the mask off. I know it's a bit hotter than it was last time.
The sweat is making my mask peel. Can I say the peel? Can I see the peel on my mask from the sweat?
Oh. The shirt's covering it, so you're good. We are hidden behind all of this, but
yeah,
like I said last time, the gills. Let me just